play basketball.
3,000! History with an exclamation point!
Company for three. Bang! That one goes down, and the game is tied. Rockies are champions of baseball.
Okay, let's talk about this one. It was getting a little boring there for a while. You know, there was nothing to talk about. We were winning too much, too happy for me. So I want to discuss this one. It actually might, I don't know, it could be the normal 25 minutes. We might be a bit shorter. But this was a tough one. It was a tough loss. And I don't know that I consider the Orlando Magic a real threat. But all they have to do is be a threat to the Knicks, right? And this is a team who I think has been a bad matchup for the Knicks dating back to last year. New head coach or not, the Knicks couldn't take advantage of that last night. And so we're going to talk about why I think this is a tough matchup for the Knicks, basically the whole episode. But they lose 124-107 to the Magic last night at the Garden, ending their undefeated streak at the Garden. You know, you can drop 140 points against the mighty Wizards or the Brooklyn Nets or the Memphis Grizzlies, but can you do it against the same types of defenses that you struggled against last year? You know, and at least so far, it doesn't seem like it. The Knicks completely flopped and failed the test, and that's a concern. I don't want to say it's a gigantic concern because it's November and this is what the regular season is for, but it's a concern for a team that's trying to win the whole thing. So it was a bad game for the Knicks. It was a bad game for a lot of individual players. Really, the only spurts of life you got in this game was like early in the second half for a couple of, seconds. And then in the top of the fourth quarter, when you had the Clarkson, Shamet, McBride, Anunoby, Cat lineup in there, that rotation produced some good defense and it led to some offense. But for the most part, this was an ugly loss and the Knicks got smoked by a 6-6 team or whatever the fuck they are. But no, in all seriousness, it was a bad performance. Brunson had a tough time. Mitch Robinson was okay. OG Anunoby was kind of a non-factor. He only took 4 shots. It was a bad Josh Hart game. You know, he comes in right away and just doesn't look good. Whenever he's like one pass away from the action, the Knicks have trouble producing offense, and they produced some bad offense last night in those scenarios. Hart had a ton of turnovers right off the bat, has a bad baseline foul on the other end. Didn't look good. Usually he's a guy who comes in and changes the energy in a good way right away. It was the opposite last night. Defensively, 124 points allowed for the Knicks. I'm going to blame the defensive part on the second of a back-to-back. That happens. It's not a Knicks defense that's amazing. And I haven't made a ton of comments on their defense so far this year, but I just want to see some more of it before I get so I can have a real sample to judge it. But last night it was bad. Brunson, a lot of blow-bys. You know, you couldn't really hide Brunson, and when they tried to hide him on Suggs, he was switched off. I thought Towns had some tough moments. He was on Jonathan Isaac some in the second half, again, using him at the 4, so it allowed the Knicks to be more aggressive hedging him. And you saw some more blitzing and hedging in the second half, a lot more than you usually do, which was encouraging. You saw some more switching than usual, which was, I guess, encouraging. But the real talking point from this game is how poorly the Knicks played and just looked in the half court. And that's kind of what, again, it's what I really want to focus here on in this episode. The Knicks, and listen, we said this at the very end of the show. You know, at the very end of shows, we talk about who's up next. And after last win against Memphis, we said it. we said Orlando is coming up next, and them being very switchable. They have a lot of wingspan, and they're very physical defense. I have a feeling that's going to give the Knicks some problems. And last night, sure enough, the Magic took the Knicks. They took away the Knicks' ability to get into their primary source of offense. Right? Their early clock offense where they get into the paint, right? They get those paint touches, and that leads to those spray threes. Well, that was not there. I thought Orlando did a very good job walling up in the deep paint to prevent the Knicks from getting there. And because of that, the Knicks only got 36 three-point attempts up, which was their lowest mark of the season. They also only generated 11 sprays, which was also a season low. So that's very telling. When they did get looks off, it was a lot of low-quality shots. You know, they either couldn't get the three-point look and then forced a contested drive, or they would take a well-contested three-point attempt with Orlando and like their wings just closing hard to the perimeter. And the Knicks were clearly very uncomfortable with that length closing out to them. But yeah, they took their paint touch to spray threes, drive and kick offense away. Every back cut was met with a body, with a tag. You know, they took away Towns being able to make plays on the pinch post. He didn't really get to that much. Every single DHO the Knicks tried to go to was very unsmooth and challenged. Same with their weave actions on the top of the key. Very unsmooth. They did a really good job challenging it every time. When the Knicks had two guys in the slot trying to run their weave plays. So I thought they did a very bad job of getting to their counters. You know, the Knicks were not getting to their counters. After the primary action was shut down last night, they didn't get to their secondaries quick enough. They were too slow. They were holding the first screen too long instead of bringing in another screener or hitting the second side. You know, that was not what you saw last night. You didn't get any of that. And really right away, like, they kind of gave up on that. They went to Brunson isos pretty quick out the gate. It seemed like they didn't really make an attempt to get into their motion offense at all. Brunson just went away from their usual offense, I think, way too early in this game. You know, it was brutal. It was very brutal to watch. So the Knicks continue to struggle with defenses like this, with pressure defenses, because they lack that second creator at the same time. You know, they don't have anybody, and this was an issue last year, who can play the role of point guard, right, and break down a defender in one-on-one and get deep paint touches to draw help. Nobody can really get deep into the paint when Brunson sits. And you saw that become very evident last night. You know, when Mikal Bridges had his on-ball reps, he was getting blitzed off those screens. Led to some very ugly possessions. Early in the season, when Mikal was thriving on the ball and we were all praising Mike Brown for empowering him, yada, yada, it wasn't against these types of disruptive defenses. You know, you saw possessions where Deuce McBride had to initiate actions, and he has trouble getting the Knicks into a set. You know, when Deuce McBride comes off a pick and roll, a double drag, that's an auto switch for the defense. He's not a guy who can break a defense down and get into the paint like that, which is why I do feel like the Knicks at some point should start using Jordan Clarkson that way, because Jordan Clarkson, as erratic as he can be when he has to make decisions, can at least get into the paint. He's really good at getting paint touches. Now, what happens after that is, you know, put your hands together and pray, but he's much better as that secondary creator than I think really anybody else. So that's really it. They just couldn't get into their normal offense, man. So it's concerning for me, for sure. that was supposed to be, and I don't want to say that was supposed to be as if you can't adjust, but it's supposed to be a big part of this offense is when your primaries aren't there, can you get to your counters? And I didn't really feel like the Knicks made an effort to get to their counters. So we'll see. They do have Orlando on the schedule again in a couple of weeks. So that's going to be nice because you're not really going to get a lot of litmus tests like this in a weak Eastern Conference. But they had their first real test last night, and they completely failed. They didn't come close to passing at any point in this game. Was I ever confident in their ability to produce easy offense? No, I wasn't. So rough loss, and we're going to head to a break really briefly. Get back, talk about who produced or who performed the best in this loss. We'll get to who's coming up next, and then we'll wrap it up with our trivia. And that's going to be it. It's going to be a shorter show. So stay with us. We'll be back in a sec.
Quick break here, guys. Stay connected with BD4 on social media. Follow us on Instagram and X at BD4Pod, and find us on Facebook by searching BD4. Don't miss out. Join the conversation. Want more BD4? Subscribe to our YouTube channel and never miss an episode. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and share with your fellow fans. Don't forget to ring that bell so you're always the first to know when a new video drops. Love BD4 but don't have the time to sit down and watch? Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leave us a 5-star rating and a quick review. It helps us grow and keeps the conversation going.
Okay. Welcome back to the podcast, episode 925 of BD4. I appreciate you all for tuning in. There weren't many good Knicks last night. There were the Knicks who were the least worst. But since we do in the regular season hand out game balls, win or lose, Jalen Brunson from the starting unit gets his 6th game ball of the year. 31 points, 6 assists, 10 for 13 at the foul line, 37 minutes. Unfortunately, at the end of this game, when the Knicks were down, 15 with just a couple of minutes left, Bane knocks down that 3. You thought that was when Mike Brown should have called the timeout and took his captain out of the game. He did not do that. He kept him in the game. Brunson, I think, on a drive to the basket, falls down, hurts his ankle, and seemed okay in the moment, but reports say after the game that he left the building in crutches and in a walking boot. So now it seems like Jalen Brunson is going to be out for an extended period. You're probably not going to have him for the next at least couple of weeks. So that's good. If this was, I hate to do this, but I also kind of like to do it because people got obnoxious with it last year. If this was the old head coach, I'll say, boy, would this be making headlines. But it's not, right? So we're allowed to be quiet about it. But yeah, it was not a good decision from Mike Brown. He should have been out of that game. But now he's hurt and he's out for maybe a month. Who knows? You go to the second unit. I think Landry Shamet is the only one you can really consider. Again, I didn't like Josh Hart's game. I didn't think Deuce McBride played well. People are bitching about his playing time with Shamet. I don't really care. Don't tell anybody I said that. But I did think Shamet was fine. He gets his first game ball in a fucking loss. But I thought he was their only source of efficient offense. In that third quarter, the Knicks were kind of in it at moments, and he was getting into the mid-range. He was knocking them down. They were ugly looks, but finishes with 11 points, 4 of 6 on the field, and I think 3 of 3 on the mid-range. So good for Landry Shamet, I guess. That's it, man. I don't want to talk about the rest of this game. We pretty much wrapped up what we have to. So up next for the Knicks, for the Knicks. Up next for the Knicks, they've got Miami on Friday. Miami coming off a tough loss, as the Knicks are. So it is the last game of this big homestand. The Knicks obviously played the Heat earlier this year and won. Right? Yes. And they will be playing them tomorrow. They play them tomorrow night, playing them at the Garden for the last game of the homestand. I don't know why I keep repeating myself. It is a cup game. Just saw that as I opened the app. That's cool, I guess. It's a Prime Video game, so there we go. I have to jump through hoops if you want to watch that one. Thanks, guys. So that is a 7 p.m. game, so we'll see. Hopefully the Knicks can bounce back, but they won't have their captain for a bit. So with that said, let's wrap it up with our trivia and get the hell out of here. In our trivia for this episode, question here is a Knicks Heat question. Who holds the Knicks franchise record for most points scored in a playoff game against the Heat? All right. Who holds the Knicks franchise record for most points scored in a playoff game against the Heat? I feel like that's a pretty easy one for Knicks fans, but let me know the answer. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, whoever did. If you're listening, thank you. If you're watching, thank you. And I'll see you soon. Later. Hey guys, thank you for listening to BD4. Be sure to follow us on social media, subscribe to us on YouTube, and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time.